Yeah, so, I mean, you guys might consider saying, look, these are the kinds of documents, and maybe it's just periodic evaluations, I don't know, but these are the documents that we would be interested in seeing, and then the custodian of records or who would ever be designated the general manager who would oversee those files could provide that specific document out of the file so that we're not giving board members access to the entire file, information that you guys aren't going to want anyways, information that potentially could bring liability to the district, and then also maybe employees feel more comfortable with your guys' access to the file being much more limited. So that's something that could be considered. I've got a lot of comments on specific language in here, and maybe not a lot of comments, but I have comments on every page, multiple comments. I can go through those now, or maybe you guys want to have more deliberation and discussion as to what you're wanting to accomplish, but I mean, I guess that's kind of just a very basic overview without getting into the details.
Well, what's your flavor on it? If you have concerns, I would say redline them and let's review it at another date. And you know, we can talk about specific language. I really don't care to ever get into a personnel file personally, but I do see some value to the board having access to certain aspects of it, which we talked about. So.
And just so I get an idea, I mean, in the event there's direction of some kind to staff to make revisions to the policy, maybe you guys could have a discussion as to, is that correct? Rich has expressed that view. I don't know if the board as a whole feels that way. Are there specific things you guys want to look at? And if so, we can craft a policy that would be consistent with that. So I guess that...
If you don't mind, if you've got some specific areas in there you think that we need to tune up a little bit instead of kicking the can down the road and bringing this back another time and another time and another time, let's spend a little bit of time and go through those, find out what they are, and talk about them.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for example, this is only going to be in the order as it appears in the policy.
Okay. Tell us where you're at.
I'm on 1.1. Okay. Some of these are very minor, but just to make you aware of them. There's some language in here in the very last sentence. It's actually the last clause of the last sentence. It says, to discipline and discharge employees for cause. I don't like that language simply because, as I understand it, most of the district employees, I think all of them actually, are at-will employees. And so if we start using for-cause language in here, that might create an issue that you guys are not intending to create. So I would take out that for-cause language probably. In 1.3, the last sentence says all changes, revisions, additions, and notices of deletions to these policies will be made available to all employees. My comment there is, let's make sure that there's some policy in place that actually happens, because what I would envision is that this board would have a public meeting where you guys would determine what policy changes would be made. And so either at the end of that meeting or somehow direction would be given that information is provided. I just think, again, it's one of the provisions in this policy that if we're going to include, we better make sure that we're going to follow it. I actually deleted entirely paragraph 1.4. It talks about creating interpretive memoranda and other things that are additional documents that the board would have to create potentially to further interpret this policy. I don't know that I like that. My preference would be, let's get it in the policy. If it's important, let's put it in the policy now, and let's not draft other documents that try to interpret the policy, and then we've got multiple places we have to look for information to know, well, what is the policy on personnel information? I would say, my suggestion would be, let's take out 1.4, and let's let the policy speak for itself, and let's make it sufficiently detailed that it accomplishes what you want to accomplish, but doesn't add any unnecessary liability.
Just back to 1.3, what are you suggesting there on the, are you suggesting we add to that?
Yeah, I mean, more so I'm just suggesting that maybe there's a person within staff that it's going to be that person's job to make sure that this happens. And maybe even adding a sentence so that a board in the future doesn't forget, look, after a meeting where a policy change could potentially be made to this employment policy that, or this personnel policy that, it's pretty clear what needs to happen so that the employees are properly given notice of what changes have taken place. It's a pretty minor issue, but I think it's important. In paragraph 1.5.1, it says, the first sentence, the employer shall maintain a master personnel file for each employee. And this is going to start getting into segregating the, and I don't know that we want to do that actually. That may be more of a burden than we want.
I already do that.
You already,
There's all these policies are all separated on
okay, medical
there.
and
Medical,
applications.
grievances, and
Okay,
there's you have master file, payroll
I
files,
think it's,
grievance files, medical files.
okay.
That's what this whole book I've already done all that kind of stuff.
Was that in place previously, or was it, okay, all right. Then that's probably fine. If we're already doing it and it's working, then yeah, by all means, let's not reinvent the wheel. Were you gonna say something?
No, it sounds like probably have Bo more time to review this would be beneficial. I know whatever changes for staff, it could change what they've already reviewed, well, it will change what they've already reviewed and we're comfortable with, so I think on the staff's behalf, I'm sure they would like to have another opportunity if things are changed.
Yeah.
And along with, when looking some of these things up, I can't remember what NRS it is, I think it was 461 or something of that nature, but it talked about whistleblower policy, and that's something also the district doesn't have, and at some point, law requires it to have it, us to have it, and so it needs to be implemented too, and I think that's something we need to address as well in the future.
I mean, maybe on, the board could direct that on the next agenda, we have this procedure that has been discussed about the general manager and as well as this whistleblower policy that we could bring back before the board. At least information and possibly even sample policies you guys could review. In 1.6.1 on page 2, there's state law that governs how long these kinds of, well, some of this information needs to be kept. Some of, yeah, some of the, and it depends, and it's fairly complicated, but some of this is even for applicants, and I don't know that the district wants to be retaining that stuff for long. Mary, how long is the district retaining applicant information, like resumes and 2 years? Okay. So, just, I mean, this is more of a simplicity type thing, but it might be helpful to just include that information right in here so that all the information that someone might want regarding some of these policies is all contained in the same place. I think that the bylaws and everything that we're working on in these other issues, part of what we're doing there, I think, is to get that all condensed into one, you know, fewer documents, so finding answers is much simpler than what it has been. I circled E on paragraph 5 on page 3 under 1.6.1 only because if training is done, I think that it's very important, and our employees are probably already trained on this, but releasing very limited information about employees, former employees, I think is critical.
yeah,
Yeah,
just for the,
yeah, there's even been, fortunately, we haven't violated the law or even, I think, ethically done anything wrong, but I know that issues have come up even in public meetings about former employees, and we need to be really, really careful about what we say. Obviously in public meetings, but also if there are calls or people coming in inquiring at the district.
yeah, I think we should verify employment. That's about it.